Sometimes love isn't loud. It's quiet sacrifices in the dark that no one ever sees. You ever have a memory so vivid? It plays like a film reel whenever you close your eyes? That's what Riverton feels like to me. Not the town itself. The cracked sidewalks, the rusted swing sets, the gas station where everyone seemed to gather after school, but the weight it held. The kind of weight you carry without realizing until one day, it breaks your back. My name is Sophie Barrett, and if there's one thing I've mastered in this life, it's invisibility. Not in the dramatic, ghost-like sense. No. My invisibility looked like quietly working doubles, skipping meals, and pretending that everything was fine when it absolutely wasn't. When I was 18, and my dad passed away suddenly from a heart attack, everything shifted. Not in a poetic, transformational way, but in a brutal, cut-off-the-oxygen kind of way. My mom, already fragile from years of emotional instability, collapsed into a fog. She stopped paying bills, stopped cooking, sometimes forgot what day it was. I didn't blame her. Grief does weird things to people. But someone had to keep the house running. And someone had to make sure Kara, my younger sister, stayed in school. Kara was 12 at the time. She was this bright, wild, beautiful kid who believed in the good in people and spent her Saturdays choreographing dances in our living room. She had no idea how close we were to losing everything. And I made damn sure she never found out. I dropped my college plans. I was supposed to leave for upstate New York that fall, full-ride political science, but instead, I stayed in Riverton and picked up 2 jobs. Day shifts at Harlan's Diner, night shifts stocking inventory at Weldon's Pharmacy. It was exhausting, humiliating at times, especially when I ran into classmates ordering milkshakes while I scrubbed floors, but I kept going. I had to. I told Kara our dad had left behind an education fund, that he'd made arrangements before he passed. I even forged a document to show her. She believed me. She always believed me. For years, I paid her school fees in secret. When she wanted new shoes for choir performances or fancy notebooks because everyone at school had them, I smiled and found a way. I sold some of Dad's old watch collection. I let go of the idea of vacations, of weekends off. Even birthdays blurred into shifts and rent-due notices. I wore the same 3 pairs of jeans for nearly 5 years. I stitched up the knees when they tore. I got good at turning thrift store finds into something that looked intentional, chic, even. I became resourceful. But it chipped away at me. No one ever noticed. Not even when my hands cracked from overuse, or when my eyes burned from 5-hour sleeps between jobs. The thing is, I never did it expecting praise. I wasn't waiting for Kara to write me a thank you note. I did it because she was my sister. Because I loved her. And maybe deep down, because I thought if I made her life better, it would redeem all the pain our family carried. By the time Kara got into college, some lifestyle psychology program with glossy brochures and emotional empowerment buzzwords, I had saved just enough to help cover her tuition and dorm fees. Again, I told her the fund covered it. She was so happy that day. She cried and hugged me and said something like, "Dad would be so proud." And even though it stung, I smiled and nodded. But something shifted once she left home. College changed her, or maybe it revealed parts of her I hadn't seen before. She leaned hard into social media, started curating this perfect life. Brunches, weekend retreats, glossy photo shoots where she was always the center of attention. Her captions read like therapy quotes, "Protect your peace" or "Never pour from an empty cup," ironically, always under a picture of her with champagne in hand, tagged at places I couldn't afford to dream about. Still, I kept supporting her. I kept lying for her. Even when Mom would ask how Kara managed her rent or those spontaneous trips, I'd deflect. Maybe she got a campus grant, I'd say. It felt like building a house on sand. But I was too deep in it to stop. There were moments I questioned if I'd done the right thing. Especially when Kara stopped calling as often. When she'd post an outfit I recognized, something I'd once picked up for myself but gave to her when she visited, and write grateful for the blessings in life. No mention of me. No acknowledgement. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself she was just young. But part of me, some small, buried part, started to crack. Not out of jealousy. Not even out of resentment. But because I began to wonder if I had built this entire illusion, spent years sacrificing, only to raise someone who thought the world owed her sunshine. And still, I stayed silent. Until the day she asked for $28,000. That was the beginning of the end. Or maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something far more real. It wasn't just the money. It was the audacity to ask it like I owed her the world, without even knowing the price I'd already paid. I got the text on a rainy Thursday afternoon, one of those gray, soul-hollowing days when everything feels like static. I was in the back room at the co-op grocery store where I just picked up a third part-time job to cover rising rent. I'd been restocking Ken's soups for nearly 2 hours, hands numb, mind elsewhere, when my phone buzzed. It was Kara, in her usual overly enthusiastic tone. Hey. So I have an incredible idea, smiling face with heart eyes. I'll need your help financially, but it's totally worth it. Call me when you're on break. 2 heart sparkles. I rolled my eyes, already exhausted before I even knew the details. I called her during my 15-minute break. She picked up on the first ring, breathless and bubbling with excitement. Sophie. Okay. Picture this, an end-of-semester empowerment brunch for my cohort. A huge send-off before everyone goes their separate ways. Think luxury picnic meets vision board party. Branded journals, affirmation stations, grazing tables, even a local string quartet. I already found a photographer who does aesthetic reels. There was a pause. And I need about $28,000 to pull it off. That covers everything. Well, most of it. It was like she had just asked me to spot her $20 for gas. I stood there in a damp hoodie and grocery apron, the back of my neck burning. Kara, you're not serious. She laughed like I was being uptight. Of course I am. It's going to put my brand on the map. Everyone's doing events now. And with my psychology degree and community focus, it's a smart investment. A smart investment? I repeated, trying not to scream. Do you know how many rent payments that is? How many months of groceries? Do you even hear yourself? Her voice turned sharp, defensive. You don't get it because you've never built something. This isn't just a party. It's a statement. And I figured with the fund, you could. There is no fund, I snapped. Silence. For the first time in years, I heard her stunned into stillness. I made it up. After Dad died, there was nothing left. I paid your tuition. I paid your books, your rent, your phone bills, everything. I worked 3 jobs. I gave up school. I gave up my life so you could have yours. She exhaled hard. You're lying. I'm not. I never was. You just never asked. And then something inside her broke. But not the way I thought. Not like a realization or a soft apology. Instead, she screamed, "You always want to make yourself the hero. You think this is noble? You're controlling. You didn't do this for me. You did it so you could hold it over me." The line went dead. I went back to work in a fog. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just felt hollow. That night, I returned to my shared apartment and found the hallway filled with smoke. Not fire, not exactly. Just the aftermath. My roommate stood near the open window, fanning the air with a towel. She dropped off a box, she said, and burned the rest in the alley. I rushed outside. The cold air hit me like betrayal. My coats, my handbags, my shoes, all of it gone. Reduced to ash and soot and the faint smell of melted leather. I found the video later that night. Kara had posted it as an Instagram story. 30 seconds of flames licking through fabric, her voice shaky behind the camera. Sometimes we have to let go of what doesn't serve us anymore. Starting fresh. No more lies. The caption read, "Freedom. Fire #rebirth #shedding the past." I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. I kept thinking. She set fire to the last pieces of my identity and called it healing. The thing that haunted me wasn't the destruction of my clothes. It was the deliberate nature of it. The glee in her voice. The performance of liberation for an audience that didn't know what it really cost me. I tried calling her. She blocked me. She blocked my email too. I thought that would be the worst of it. But Kara wasn't finished. Within a week, she launched a campaign against me on social media. She claimed I'd had a mental breakdown. that I'd burned my own wardrobe during an episode and was now fabricating stories to deflect responsibility. Her friends reposted her messages, added fake screenshots, painted me as the bitter, unstable sister jealous of Kara's success. I watched my reputation implode in real time. People I hadn't spoken to in years sent concerned messages laced with judgment. Even my ex, Nate, texted, "Saw Kara's story, didn't expect you to spiral like that. Hope you get the help you need." The help I need? I'd carried this family for years. I realized something terrifying in that moment. Not just that Kara had lied, but that her lies were more believable than my truth. Because I had made myself invisible for too long. And now the cost was coming due. They say the truth will set you free. But first, it shatters everything you thought you were protecting. For days after the fire, I lived in a state of eerie calm. Not peace, more like a paralysis. Like when you stub your toe so hard that you go numb before the pain sets in. I moved through my apartment like a ghost, folding laundry that wasn't mine, reheating coffee that I never drank, scrolling through Kara's posts as if I was trying to understand a stranger's life. Her version of reality was spreading like wildfire. In her story, I was the unstable one. I had a breakdown. I destroyed my own closet as a symbolic act, and was now inventing lies because I couldn't handle her growth. She posted pictures of us from 3 years ago with captions like, "Don't let the ones who raised you think they can keep you small. Love them, but from afar." She played the victim flawlessly. Tearful Instagram lives, vague tweets about emotional abuse, curated comments from friends who never even knew me. She even included clips of a voice memo I'd once sent her during a particularly hard night, where I said, "I'm exhausted, Kara. I feel like I'm drowning and no one sees it." She twisted it to prove instability. The betrayal wasn't just painful. It was surgical. At work, people started avoiding me. My supervisor at the co-op, who used to chat about documentaries with me during breaks, suddenly had meetings every time I sat down. Friends from high school unfollowed me, messaged me vague concerns like, "Hope you're okay." Saw some things that really worried me. Even mom went silent for 2 whole weeks. I had disappeared in plain sight. Again. I remember sitting in my studio one night barefooted, wrapped in the only blanket Kara hadn't destroyed, and thinking, maybe I deserve this. Maybe I pushed too hard. Maybe I gave too much, and now I'm paying for the imbalance. But something inside me pushed back. A voice I hadn't heard in years. My own. "You don't owe her your silence." That's when I started gathering everything. Not for revenge. Honestly, I don't think I had enough strength left to hate. I just wanted the truth on the record. I wanted to reclaim my name, my story, and the last remaining pieces of my dignity. First, I printed every receipt I had from the past 8 years, tuition payments, book orders, rent deposits. I combed through my old banking app and printed out line-by-line transactions, all labeled Kara Tuition, Kara Books, Kara Dorm Meal Plan. I even found the original forged document I'd made, the fake education fund paper I'd typed up the day after our dad's funeral. Then I found voice memos, casual ones she'd sent me over the years, asking for money, thanking me for transfers, joking about the magical invisible bank of Sophie. I backed up texts where she asked for help covering her car repairs, her spring break trip, her networking conference that turned out to be a beach weekend with her boyfriend. Most damning of all, I saved the screenshots of the now-deleted story where she filmed the fire. Her hand was visible. Her voice clear. The caption, "Let her burn," was unmistakably hers. I took a deep breath and started writing. The post was long, just under 2,000 words. No drama, no hashtags, no flair. I titled it simply, "What I've Never Said." I told the truth. About dad dying without a penny left. About mom's breakdown. About the jobs I took. About Kara's tuition and the fake fund and the years I spent pretending I was okay so she could believe she was special. And then I told the truth about now. How she burned my wardrobe. How she manipulated our family and friends. How she lied to protect an image built on secrets and entitlement. I included screenshots, audio clips, receipts, just enough to verify everything without turning it into a spectacle. I posted it on a Sunday night. Closed my laptop. Turned off my phone. Slept for the first time in weeks. When I woke up, everything had changed. The post had gone viral, at least within Riverton and the university scene. Hundreds of comments poured in. Some from people who knew us, some who didn't. But almost all of them said the same thing. I always wondered. Thank you for speaking up. I believed her and I'm so sorry. Even more shocking was an email from Kara's university, specifically the Student Affairs Office. One of her professors had seen my post and forwarded it to administration. Apparently, Kara had submitted false documents to secure student grants, exaggerated invoices, and made up consulting fees that mirrored the budget for her empowerment brunch. An investigation began immediately. Within 3 days, she was placed on academic suspension pending further review. And then came the text. Not from Kara. From Mom. It was a voice message, actually. Tearful, stammering, almost incoherent. I believed her, Sophie. I didn't want to, but I did. I'm so sorry. I didn't know the truth. I should have asked. I'm sorry I let you carry all of it. I cried. Not because it made everything better, but because it was the first time someone saw me. Really saw me. And as for Kara? She sent one final message, 3 days later. You ruined my life. I hope you're happy. I didn't reply. Not because I was trying to be the bigger person, but because I had nothing left to say. You think liberation feels like fireworks. But sometimes, it's just the silence that finally follows the storm. The apartment was quiet. The kind of quiet that hums in your bones. Not lonely, not empty, just still. I remember sitting on my new couch, the one I'd saved up for after moving, drinking lukewarm coffee and staring out the single wide window that overlooked a narrow street in Riverton. It wasn't much. A third-floor walk-up. Peeling paint on the doorframe. No air conditioning. But it was mine. No secrets lived here. No unspoken deals. No invisible chains. That's what liberation felt like. Not triumph. Not celebration. Just breath. Just space. The fallout from my post rippled far wider than I expected. After the university's internal investigation, Kara was officially suspended for academic dishonesty and grant misuse. They didn't expel her, not yet, but she'd have to reapply next year, undergo ethical training, and cover the misused funds if she wanted another chance. That empowerment brunch she wanted to throw? Never happened. The vendors she'd booked came forward and said she hadn't paid a single deposit. She'd been bluffing, expecting the money to land in her lap, like it always had. Her social media? A ghost town. She went dark for weeks. When she came back, it was with vague captions and selfies drenched in fake healing energy. Growth comes after fire. Not everyone will understand. She never addressed the truth. Never apologized. Our mother, though, that changed everything. She showed up at my door one Sunday. Hair messier than I'd ever seen it, makeup streaked, a grocery bag in one hand. She cried for almost 10 minutes straight. I stood in the doorway unmoving until she finally broke. I failed you. I believed the daughter who sparkled louder. I never looked close enough at the one who kept the lights on. I didn't hug her. I couldn't yet. But I let her sit inside. I made tea. We talked. And for the first time, I let her in on the details. The ramen dinners, the overdrafts, the nights I spent crying into textbooks I couldn't afford to finish. She listened. Really listened. And when she left, she didn't try to fix it. She just said, "You deserved better." That was enough. In the weeks that followed, I started writing again. Not just journal entries, real essays. Stories. I turned my pain into paragraphs. I submitted one to a women's blog under the pseudonym, The Invisible Sister. It went viral. A podcast invited me to speak. I did, trembling, but I did. The response was overwhelming. Messages from women who had paid for siblings' dreams, supported parents through mental illness, carried whole households in silence. I wasn't alone. That realization healed me more than any apology ever could. Then came the twist I didn't expect. I got an email from a woman named Dr. Marin Whiteley, a counselor and professor who specialized in financial trauma and codependency. She'd read my post and invited me to co-create a workshop on boundaries, betrayal, and becoming. At first, I thought it was a scam. Me? Teach? But the idea kept tugging at me. So I met with her. And for the first time in my life, I was treated not as a cautionary tale, but as someone who had insight. Worth. I accepted. The first workshop had 8 people. The second, 15. By the third, we had a waiting list. That's when I knew. Kara may have built a platform on filtered moments and borrowed phrases, but I'd built something real, from ashes. She tried to reach out once more near Christmas. Sent a letter in my mailbox. No return address. Just a folded sheet of printer paper that said, "I lost everything because of you. I hope you sleep well knowing that." I didn't respond. Because she hadn't lost everything because of me. She lost it because she never appreciated what was given to her. Because she turned love into leverage. And because when the lies ran out, so did the power. But me? I'd finally stepped out of the shadows. I had no designer wardrobe, no viral brunches, no shiny Instagram moments. What I had was better. A life that was mine. Honesty. Peace. A place to breathe. Sometimes I pass Riverton University and wonder what Kara tells herself now. If she remembers the girl who carried her. If she ever misses me, not as her wallet or her scapegoat, but as her sister. I'll never know. And that's okay. Not every wound needs closure. Some just need space to scar and fade. I've stopped waiting for apologies that may never come. Now I walk lighter. I sleep deeper. And every time I sip coffee in my quiet apartment, I remind myself, I didn't burn down. I burned through. And I emerged something stronger. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Your support means everything. If this story touched you or made you think, please subscribe to our channel for more real, powerful stories.